Well. Are we live now?
Yeah.
I was doing something random there. I was looking at the YouTube thing and not even looking at the fact that we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, you're probably thinking, well, you don't sound too happy. Let me set a disclaimer, but let me set a disclaimer before I start. I've been awake since 3:30 a.m. I've not slept. Do you know what? I was talking to Nikhil at 4:30 a.m. on Insta Live about this test match. Nikhil, when we were talking all the way up until lunchtime, and at lunchtime, obviously Mayers and Bonner had batted through the session. And do you remember my words to you, Nikhil? I said, I'm excited about this. I think we've got a chance.
For once in your life, yes.
And you have to admit it. You have to admit it because you were shocked that I said I was excited.
That's what I said. I've never heard from all my interactions with you. I've never heard you've been excited about a West Indies test on day 5 ever. So the fact that you were, I think, is a great achievement. And you should take a bow.
So do you know what? We've got a lot of people on the live. If you're joining us for this, obviously we're going to record it and we'll send a link to it tomorrow for those who can get to watch it live. But if you're there, first things first, tell us that you're there. We can see that Tawhid is with us. He thought he was coming on. He thought he was coming on today to kind of give us commiserations, but now we're about to clown all over him for the duration.
I had a whole thing, a whole list of things that I was going to talk about, trying to glean some of the positives from the West Indies losing. But yeah, obviously it's totally the other way around.
Do you know what we're going to do first, though? I think the best place to start first isn't actually. Obviously, we know what the main talking point is. Our Mayers, and I don't even know how to put it in words, an unprecedented inning. Never been done before on test debut. 210 not out. 4th innings. 395 to chase. I don't even though we've got the prime optimist Nikhil with us, he cannot pretend that that's what he thought Carl Mayers would do. He can't pretend. There is no way you can say, none of us can say truly that we thought he would hit a double century on the final day's play. Who's going to try and pretend that they saw that coming?
Go on, Nikhil. Stage is yours.
I would say I didn't, and no one will ever be able to say that they expected that. But that was something of some different. I'm so shocked when I think about that feat. 210 not out to get your team over the line on day 5, and it was. I mean, I watched every single ball. It was very tough, and my heart was in my mouth. I was sweating in the AC, all sort of things, pacing up and down, heart pumping. But I really have to give it to Kyle Mayers. I think he's a special player, Maka. I don't think a lot of players in the world could get that done, achieve a feat like that. And lucky to Bangladesh, because I think people forget the Shakib effect, and I think that also had a big part to play on things, because you could tell the Bangladeshi spinners were tiring. But at the same time, I was even say Bangladesh were unlucky because they had a review which was out and they didn't review it. So, but that's cricket, and that's what happened. And even when Bangladesh were batting, they had luck as well. So I would say, Santoki, that I knew we would. I had a feeling we would win. I was extremely nervous, but I did not know it would be Kyle Mayers at the end to do it like that. When Marshall tweeted about Shannon Gabriel, and the game was getting down to that time, I already said to myself, it would be such a West Indies thing if Shannon Gabriel was the one that had to come out and hit the winning runs. But thank God that none of that happened.
Yeah.
So you know what? Sorry, catching all my words here. I want to be balanced with this first, because a lot of people may well be. So many people joined the Twitter handle today, so I don't even know who's going to be joining us today. But let's do this balanced and proper first and foremost. Although, let me put this first. Wheel up the Ras Clark, says Daniel. But let's do this balanced properly, because I want to go to Tawhid first, actually. And for anybody who's new to Rumshot, Nikhil, myself, and Santoki, we've been doing this since the England tour. Tawhid was with us for the ODI series. We told you, for those who watched during the ODI series, that we were going to bring Tawhid back in. Tawhid, I'm going to come to you first, because I've just written something where I've put that Bangladesh dominated 90% of this test match. I think it's the first day was even Stevens, but I'm going to say that up until the final day, they were in full control of this test match and the destiny of this test match. From your perspective, and Nikhil's already touched on it with Shakib, there is huge question marks about who passed Shakib fit. But from your perspective, from a Bangladesh perspective, what went wrong? Now you've had a few hours to digest. What went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you say. I think, Bangladesh certainly the better of the test match for pretty much 4 days. Like you say, the first day was pretty even Stevens. Second day, they kind of got to that 430 total off the back of the century. Third day, we had that tea time collapse from the Windies. Fourth day, they set up that target of 395. So pretty much, up to that point, it was plain sailing. And then, day 5, they just did not turn up. The spinners were kind of blunted. They looked very flat in the field, I thought. The captain, I describe him as a bit of an accidental captain. He's only really captain because by default, essentially, because a lot of the other seniors, he became captain when Shakib was first out of international cricket for his band, so he was kind of handed the captaincy more out of. I don't think he volunteered to do it, put it that way. A novice captain who was quite kind of uninspiring in the field, where we know, on a 5th day, you've got to try and inspire your troops as much as you can. They look quite flat. They were waiting for things to happen, I thought, in the field, rather than being a bit proactive. I thought, maybe I'm being ultra critical, but I thought some of the field placings looked a bit on the defensive side, especially, maybe in that morning session when there were more runs to play with. But you're right about the Shakib factor. It's interesting, because apparently the injury that he picked up on day 2, so he only bowled for 6 overs on day 2. He scored 60-odd first innings. But apparently the injury that he picked up was a new thigh injury rather than so he kind of limped out the third ODI with a groin injury. So apparently it's a new injury. I'm not sure about that myself. It seems a bit of a convenient kind of thing to be picking up a new injury on day 2 of a test match and then not playing any more parts. So there's certainly lots of questions around whether or not he should have played. And then I guess the other thing, there's been lots of chat about this amongst Bangladesh fans and supporters, and that's really about, this whole kind of tactic that Bangladesh seem to continually pursue in red ball cricket, especially, which is basically producing low, slow, spin-friendly surfaces, loading the team with spinners. So as we saw in this match, they had 4 spinners. And just 1 seamer, and that doesn't really give you, for my money, it doesn't give you any variety in your attack, especially if your main spinner, breaks down and doesn't play much part in it. So a number of factors in terms of selection, the pitch, but also as has been said before, they did have their chances, even on day 5. I think they probably had enough chances to get Mayers out fairly early. So actually, he was dropped late on in the evening session on day 4. He was dropped by Fizz out on the boundary. It was like a swirling ball coming over his shoulder. He's diving for it and just couldn't grasp it. Mayers was on 32 at the time. So and then in the morning session, I think he was dropped on bed that there were a couple of reviews that weren't taken inexperience on the of Momin or the captain. So a combination of things kind of went wrong, but ultimately, for me personally, as someone who loves cricket, who's watched it, all my life, it was one of those kind of occasions where you watch a test match where you can actually stand back for a second and just applaud kind of individual brilliance. And I think that Test cricket is, I kind of wrote about this earlier in my piece, but I think Test cricket is so unique in that way, whereby no other sport really allows you to do that, to applaud someone on the opposition for stunning feat, a stunning achievement of that innings of 210 not out. No one saw it happening. I certainly didn't. But yeah, hats off to him.
Yeah, I think sorry, yeah, I was gonna say I think it can't be at the moment. We're probably still in shock, myself, Michelle, and Nikhil, but over time it will hit us just how significant a victory this is. Highest chase ever in Asia, 395. You've got Mayers and Bonner on debut with the partnership. Josh De Silva, who'd only played one test before, and these guys are leading the chase of 395 in Bangladesh with a West Indies side second string, as a lot of people would call them. To pull off this victory is one of the great all-time test victories that can't be understated. And as you hinted at, Toy, nobody can say they saw it coming. So massive milestone, and yeah, I can't even process it at the moment still.
So let's hand over to the Bayesian. Go on, let's give him the platform, because the thing is, Nikhil's here because his man got 210. You know what? Let me hand over to Nikhil. You go on, Nikhil. You've got the floor here.
No, I mean, I think we've said a lot. Everyone's covered how special of a player Kyle Mayers is. I actually reposted it on my Instagram story today. I interviewed him after his second 100 in the first class season that's just concluded. So obviously he got 654 runs, and it was from that moment, the way I saw him bat. I mean, the pitch was deteriorating. It was late in that first class game. Everyone else was not batting as well, and the guy was on a different surface, and it sort of replicated itself in Bangladesh once again. So, I mean, Kyle Mayers he's seriously something sensational, man, and he's showing it. And I forget just Kyle Mayers. Let's talk about Bonner and talk about the rest of the team. What I love about this is this will have a knock-on effect on the entire region. I can tell you that firsthand. I spoke to some players, obviously, that have that are not with the team right now, and they're overjoyed. They're so happy of what they've witnessed. A lot of them are at the Super 50, so they couldn't be able to physically stay out and watch, because I'm sure they have practice. We saw Leewards and Windwards play, but man, I can tell you, Masha and Santoki and Tahir, that they are very happy. So in terms of the knock-on effect that I'm alluding to, I think what we need in West Indies cricket, and Masha, you're one that always says it, we need that competition for places. When you have guys, and Nkrumah Bonner is a top order batsman, he gets 86. You have Kyle Mayers, who bats at 6, 210. It really questions now the selection. I'm sure we're gonna have a ball talking about that, but it's good. The fact that we're speaking about it means that it's good. So that's probably my biggest positive if you look at the overall team. And then obviously, as Masha likes to call me, the Bayesian bias, Craig Brathwaite's captaincy, tweeted it. I think he's much improved. A lot of people said, "Oh well, Craig 0-5." Well, he's 1-6 now, and this test I definitely saw a different Craig Brathwaite as captain. So I was extremely impressed with both his batting and his leadership, and I think that's a major reason. It's underlooked, but it's a major reason why the West Indies won this test.
Yeah, and Nikhil, I'm going to support you. I tweeted similar from our handle. I think Brathwaite's captaincy. This was Brathwaite's team. And it's one of those intangible things where if somebody says to me, but what makes you say that? When a team is fighting and they believe that they can pull off a win, that's a captain's team. At no point did shoulders drop, which is the usual West Indian thing in this situation. At no point did shoulders drop and players believe that they couldn't do it. You could clearly see in the body language that everyone was in it together. So by no means am I saying now make Craig Brathwaite West Indies captain, but I am saying it was a very, very impressive captaincy performance as well. There's a few questions that have been. There's so many questions that people have brought into the chat. I don't know how we're going to get through them all, but I've left this one up first. It's not even a question; it's a point. And Nikhil, you alluded to this as well. What was important about this 395? It wasn't Craig or Jermaine Blackwood who contributed to get it. It was Bonner's knock initially to help Kyle Mayers settle in and then do his business. Even when Bonner got out and then Blackwood did his madness, trying to score 100 runs off one ball, Josh De Silva only got 20, but he took Josh's knock is understated because he took the drama out of the chase. Sometimes the importance of your knock isn't how many runs you get. It's about, can you just take all the drama out of the situation? Can you just calm everything down, reassess what's going on? I thought that was actually quite an important knock as well, because Bangladesh undoubtedly, when Blackwood got out, must have thought 1 = 4 here. But Josh stuck in there with Mayers. Mayers was never getting out. That became clear. You could see that he was seeing the ball like he was seeing the cricket ball like it was a football by the time Josh was in. It was just, could someone stick with him? And because Santoki, I text you, you were like, we're going to win. I think it's when it was about 60 odd to go, you said we're going to win. And I said, if Josh goes, they're all going very quickly straight after that. That's why his knock was so important.
Yeah, I was going to say what you said, Mash, as well. It's just what we haven't seen in recent years with West Indies are players knowing their role. And what we saw with Bonner and De Silva is they knew exactly what they had to do, take the pressure off and allow Mayers to carry on scoring. Because as you said, it didn't look like he would get out. It was just whether they could stay in with him. And I think Josh De Silva's shown that character in New Zealand. If you remember, he was on 49. He refused to take the single because he was with the tail end. And he's someone who's shown he can play for the team. And this is very promising. And as Nikhil rightly said, competition for places can only be good for the development of West Indies cricket. But I do want to touch on one thing, Nikhil. As someone who's been watching regional cricket and been at games for the past few years, a lot of people on Twitter have asked, Carl Mayers is 28 years old and only now breaking into the side. What do you think has held him back for the past few years?
Well, to be honest, I would say about 5 years ago, he was seasoned on the Barbados front, mostly playing a lot of white ball cricket. Then he had a couple of injuries which pegged him back, and a lot of people said, well, Carl Mayers, that he fell off the boil for a little bit. He went to Norway, played in their league. It was like, it's crazy when you think about this story. Actually, I must credit Crick Buzz. They have a good story. Speaking to Shirley Clark, Carl Mayers' father, and he spoke about the Norway Premier League and what Carl Mayers did to come back from that injury. And I would say, going into this season, a lot of people said, Carl Mayers scored runs in the elite division, which is what got him the Barbados selection. That's our local Barbadian league. And then after that selection, I would say a lot of people said, well, it'll probably be a toss-up between him because the Barbados team is known for having a lot of all-rounders. But the way he batted, I think it was the first game, and he took it by storm. And from there on, he never looked back. And he got 200 in the first half season. And what was remarkable is that if you look at the top 5 batsmen, all of them are in the top order. Joshua De Silva and Nkrumah Bonner, Devon Smith, Jeremy Blackwood is the only exception. I think he batted at 4 or 5. But Carl Mayers was coming in at 6 and still managing to score this bulk of runs. So that was fantastic to me. And the way he batted this season, I think it was fantastic. So obviously coming back from that injury was not easy. And that's why I think he didn't bowl as much as we would have liked because he's still recovering from that injury. But yeah, that's it. For those that are wondering where was Carl Mayers all these years, we saw him in the CPL a long time ago. And even in the T2 regional T20, you would have seen him for windwards, etc. Then he got injured and then slowly made his way back, and here he is now.
We've got a big conversation to have, more so us three than Tawhid, about what this means. Obviously, there's still a second test, I hasten to add. And I do not see, well, actually, I was about to say I don't see Bangladesh taking this lightly, but I don't see Shakib playing in the second test. But Tawhid, there's 3 points here which I'm going to ask you to wax lyrical on. They're all people giving points about Bangladesh here. So the first one, I can't even find it now, but it was basically, do you think Bangladesh got complacent? Then there's this one, which I didn't notice. Did you guys notice Shakib giving the team a talk before the third session? That says a lot about Momino. I didn't even see that, so that's that. I must not have seen that. And then this one, no senior Bangladeshi players, Mushfiqur and Tamim, were in the ears of the bowlers. Tawhid, that's all for you. Go for it.
Yeah, I kind of wrote about this as well, actually. Yeah, so Shakib did give a pep talk, a team talk just before that final session on the final day. And yeah, it was quite interesting. Like you say, it kind of shows, the respective stature that they hold kind of Shakib in compared to Momino. Like, really, Shakib is the de facto kind of captain of that team, the de facto leader of that team, I suppose. So yeah, he led that team talk going into day 3 and into session 3. And yeah, Tamim was actually off the field as far as I'm aware. It's a bit difficult to judge when you're watching on TV because they don't really update you that much on the substitute fielders. But I know there were a lot of substitute fielders coming on and off for Bangladesh on that final day. But I think Tamim had some sort of hand injury, so he was off. off the field of play for the first 2 sessions. He came back on that final session. So yeah, it's interesting. There weren't actually that many senior players on the field for most of that day. And I think that did kind of tell in those first 2 sessions where Bangladesh didn't pick up any wickets. In my mind, they looked quite flat, a little bit bereft of ideas. And, you know, in the end, they just left it too late in that final session.
Just a question for Tawhid. Sorry, Mash. I just want to ask quickly. Would you say, in your opinion, did you feel, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of people told everyone, put it out there that there's no way. First of all, the last time the West Indies went to Bangladesh, both tests finished in, say, 3 days. So everybody's seeing 75 for 3. They're saying, oh, well, you know, by lunch, it'll be wrapped up, etc. Do you think there was any complacency within their bowlers thinking, well, this is a West Indies team that we roll over every time? On a last day surface, there's no chance. Now, mind you, the pitch did play very good. I would say it held it together well going into the last couple of hours going into day 5, which was surprising to me. But would you say that you saw some complacency from Bangladesh?
Well, I'd say I was one of those people that was expecting it to be over really maybe in 1.5 sessions at the most, maybe up to tea. But yeah, I was certainly one of those people predicting that kind of outcome. Yeah, in terms of, I don't know if it was complacency. Yeah, maybe an element of that. I feel it was just, yeah, maybe they did expect to just kind of turn up and it would happen, right? You know, in terms of making that initial breakthrough and then sort of running through the team. I don't know, maybe they were slightly kind of looking at what happened in the second innings where, you know, the last 5 wickets went down for 6 runs. So I don't know if they were thinking, right, we'll make 1 breakthrough and then that's it. You know, the rest will follow quite easily. So, yeah, I certainly think for whatever reason, there just wasn't enough intensity in that last day. There wasn't enough kind of inspiration on the field. You know, you could tell the body language wasn't great. And, yeah, it just led to, you know, in the end, I thought, actually, okay, West Indies won by 3 wickets. But in the end, I'd say it was actually a lot more comfortable than that scoreline suggests.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And actually, one thing I'd be intrigued about, Tawhid, is so if the West Indies had been in Bangladesh's position and let that match go, everyone would be cussing back in the Caribbean. No, we'd want nobody in that side to ever play for the West Indies again. So, I mean, how do recriminations work in Bangladesh? Do you see major changes taking place ahead of the second test, or do you just see a lot of air and noise after this? What do you see happening?
Well, to answer your questions about recriminations, so I was doing this TV thing yesterday for a Bangladeshi TV channel on Sky channel 777. Anyway, I was doing this thing, and at that stage there were recriminations, even when, you know, Bangladesh seemingly being on the brink of victory. So recriminations happen. I did a show during the ODI series where, you know, after Bangladesh had comprehensively you know, won in each of those 3 games, but there were still recriminations. There were still issues about team selection. There were still issues about, you know, why aren't they picking more fast bowlers? What are these terrible pitches they're preparing? So undoubtedly, you know, the team will be, I think, really quite hurt, demoralised, as they should be with a defeat like this. But yeah, secondly, there will be huge kind of inquests and recriminations going on. Back in Bangladesh, there'll be huge kind of criticism in terms of how the captain performed. I think I've probably added to that a little bit with what I wrote today. But yeah, there will be huge questions about team selection as well. You're quite right. So yeah, going into the Dhaka test, yeah, in terms of what to change, I mean, it's a difficult one because you look at traditionally that Mirpur pitch is an even more spin-friendly pitch than Chattogram. I think, Nikhil, you were right, because that Chattogram pitch actually held up pretty well, I thought, throughout those 5 days. It offered some assistance to the spinners if you bowled it on a good length. You know, there was some turn and there was something there, but generally, I think it held up quite well. But that Mirpur pitch, Dhaka, it breaks up, you know, fairly quickly. Day 2, probably day 3. you expect that to turn. So in terms of team selection, well, certainly there's a vocal majority in Bangladesh now crying against this approach of just fielding a team of spinners and not giving the pace bowlers a chance, and it's just so counterproductive because, it's counterproductive in terms of when you lose from home, as they have done, but it's also counterproductive in just not developing the way the team plays. It's not helping the bowlers develop. It's also not helping your batsmen develop when they go overseas as well and face different attacks in in New Zealand where they're about to go next month. So hopefully, well, in terms of differences or changes in the team, I can't see there being anything major because principally of the conditions that they'll be playing in Dhaka. Also, a lot of it depends on Shakib and whether he is fit or not. I mean, if he's not fit, then that again is a huge blow, because if you're replacing Shakib, essentially you're trying to replace two people, because he is, as a premier all-rounder like Ben Stokes, like Jason Holder, you're trying to replace two people. You're replacing a frontline batsman and a frontline bowler as well. So that will cause huge headaches, no doubt.
Cheers for that, Tawhid, and we await to see what the Bangladesh selection will be. Now, I won't look ahead yet, Nikhil, to what our second test selection would be. There is a conversation to be had. If it was me, I don't want us to get into it, but if it was me, I would drop Roach personally, because I'm with Tawhid. I don't see the point in having two out-and-out pacers when Bangladesh clearly aren't going to do that, when Carl Mayers can fill in to be a stock bowler. But anyways, that's another story for another day. Let's get to the big issue, Santoki and Nikhil. Back in the Caribbean, and the diaspora fans around the world, everybody will be saying now, Carl Mayers has just hit 210. People around the world who didn't even know who Carl Mayers was are now going to try and pretend like he's the greatest he's the next Carlos Brathwaite. Everyone's going to say, oh my God, Carl Mayers. And every time he comes in now, they're going to expect 210 not out. Okay? There is no way Carl Mayers can be dropped for the next test series in the Caribbean. Let me just answer you that question first. Yes or no?
No way.
No way. 100% no way.
Right. So if we agree that there is no way he can be dropped, and that if you make 210 on test debut, even though you're there to replace people that pulled out of a tour, tough on the people that pulled out now. That's their fault. So Nkrumah Bonner made 88. Does he play in the next test series at home?
With Bonner, for me, it depends as well on his performances in the second test as well, because he has played well, but I guess you can't gauge it on one test at the moment to drop a regular, especially because don't forget the players that dropped out who have cited COVID as being the reason, they can't be dropped from the team permanently because of that reason. It was told expressively. So I guess that will have a factor as well. But Bonner, I think, needs to have another test. Mayers, because the innings was so exceptional, 200, as you said, he could never get dropped for the foreseeable future.
So you're saying question mark over Bonner. So this morning at 4 a.m. On Nikhil's Insta, and in fact, probably the day before that and the day before that, I said Roston Chase is done and he can't come back to the West Indies test side. I believe there are serious questions. There were already serious question marks about Roston Chase. Shane Dowrich could now find himself in a situation where they don't bring him back into the team. And Santoki, do you remember you texted me about that the other day? You said you don't think Shane Dowrich will come back. You think Josh has now kept him out the side. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think Josh has kept him out the side. I think Dowrich is going to have to go back to. Obviously, he's had good performances in the past for West Indies, but recently he hasn't been up to the form we've known him by. I think he'll need to go back to regional cricket as well. And again, don't forget Dowrich as well. Technicality did not cite COVID as a reason for not touring. So in actual fact, he could get dropped. Whereas I think the players who did cite COVID, they can't get dropped just like that, because Johnny Grave and the Cricket West Indies did say they can't be penalised for looking after their own health in a pandemic.
But what if they were awful before the pandemic? I'd say penalise them. Nikhil, what are you saying? Would you drop anyone, Nikhil?
Boy, I tell you, but this is a really tough one. At first I was saying like maybe Bravo would have to be the one, and Roston Chase will have to bat at 4. But then, you make a good point. I don't know if Roston's batting in recent time supports him being able to bat 4. Can Kyle Mears bat at 4? Kyle Mears usually sometimes can open the batting in white ball formats. Can he be one that they would let bat at 4? I can definitely tell you, right? Roger Harper has a serious problem on his hands, but it's a good problem to have when you have a lot of options. So my thing, Masha, is if you drop, obviously the easy option is to drop Roston Chase for Kyle Mears, but who bowls spin? Are you gonna bowl? Is Kyle Mears seam bowling an enough option to be a genuine fast bowler in the Caribbean to play a frontline spinner? And I don't know if it is. So.
Yeah, and we had a big conversation. That's why we were talking up until lunch, Nikhil, because I accepted your point that as much as I think Roston should be dropped because of his batting's not up to scratch, I understand that he balances out the sides, and to give a spin option, my preferred option would be to play a frontline spinner, whoever that be, whether Warwican, Cornwall, for Sammy Permol, whoever it might be. But then obviously the issue everyone's got with that is who do you drop the paceman? Now, I still maintain that my solution is we finally make the move that we should have made years ago, which is tell Jason Holder to bat in the top 6. Nobody wants to do it, but I'm adamant that Jason Holder is probably technically one of the best batsmen in the side. And Nikhil, I know that this morning we were saying the reason he's at 8 is to shore up the fact that we can't bat. But either way, we could talk about this forever and ever, amen. But the point is, at least we now have something to talk about, as opposed to just knowing it's the same 8 players from 1 to 8 that will just play regardless because we don't know about anybody else's ability to replace them. So at least now we have a selection dilemma. And one name that we've not mentioned, who I'm wondering how he ever gets back into the test side in the near future, your guy, and Shimron Hetmeyer.
Well, I think Shimron Hetmeyer is definitely someone who's gonna. Well, that's the thing. I would say go back to first class season, but he's going to be playing the IPL. So I think at least for this year, at least for the home series coming up, it's going to be hard for Hetmeyer to break into the side. But as well, we're looking ahead towards the next series. In terms of the second test, would you guys make any changes? Because I would personally like to see Joseph come in. He's someone who can bat lower down the order, and he could come in for Roach, in my opinion. With as Torhid said, it's going to be a more spin-friendly pitch in Dhaka. So you'd be tempted to play another spinner, but as we've said, the tail is so weak at the moment. Putting Permal in is going to set us up to fail as well in that regard. So I would make the change of Joseph for the second test. It'd be interesting to hear what you guys think about. Do you keep the same 11 or would you go for that change?
So Shakes has said the same point. Big up Shakes, Grenada Independence Day today. Big up all the Grenadans. But Shakes has said, given what Torhiz has said, should we look to bring in Permal for the next test and copy Bangladesh and play 3 spinners?
I think if I was to bring in a spinner, I would bring in a Hodge, not Permal.
What, to strengthen the batting?
Yeah.
I feel
spinner, so
go on, say that again.
No, sorry, I was just gonna say then again. That's too same. You have Cornwall and Hodge. It could be Permal, but just to respond to Santoki's point, is if you were dropping Roach instead of Joseph, I would actually play Ray Marifa. Because I don't think that these surfaces, you need genuine fast pace. There's not a lot in it at all. So there's no zing or anything. So I think Ray Marifa, 1, he deserves opportunity. And 2, I think he could be effective on these surfaces. Obviously plays a lot of cricket in Guyana. Will have some similarities as well. So I think that could be an option.
Yeah.
Torhid, out of interest. So obviously I know, and again, Shakib was injured, so he couldn't bowl, and that probably would have made a huge difference. A fully fit Shakib is taking wickets on that track, and we're not talking about 210 Carl Mayers. I'm fairly certain of that because he's got X factor. He's not. Let's say he's not fit. Would you be tempted? And I know you've just said it's more of a spinning track, but given how samey the 3 spinners looked in this test just gone, and to be honest, Torhid, I'm saying that. Even in the first innings, I was thinking the same thing, because when Blackwood and De Silva rebuilt the innings, and then we had the ridiculous collapse of 5 for 6, a lot of which was self-inflicted. Up until the collapse, I was like, this this Bangladesh attack is kind of just looking a bit samey at this moment in time. Would you be tempted to bring in another seamer, or so like say Shakib can't make it, he's out, whatever the injury is? What do? Do you bring in a batsman? Do you bring in another spinner? Do you bring in a spinning all rounder? Do you bring in a bowler? What do you do as a Bangladesh selector?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, out of if you look at the free spinners, so Mehdi Hassan ended up with 8 wickets. I mean, he had a fantastic Test match actually. He ended up with 8 wickets and had got a century as well in that first innings. So I'd say his place is pretty safe for the next Test. The other 2 spinners in terms of Naeem and Taijul, yeah, again, they both looked a little bit out of sorts on that third day. Actually, I was reading something earlier on, I think it was on Crick Info, saying how short all the spinners, all the bowlers were bowling actually on that last day, which kind of contributed to you know the run chase that was ultimately successful. So yeah, the lengths that they were bowling at wasn't great. So you could potentially drop maybe one of Taijul or Naeem. Who'd you bring in? Yeah, there's a couple of okay spinners at the lower level. But yeah, no one who's kind of really obviously kind of knocking at the door, I would say. Yeah, my temptation would be to kind of bring in you know, someone like Reefer, for example, you know, the Bangladesh equivalent. So yeah, there is some. So Saifuddin, who you might remember played in that last ODI game, is actually pretty sharp bowling wise. You know, comparably for Bangladesh standards, he's probably around about the low 80s bowling wise, and batting he could probably do a job. I mean, the thing is he's kind of quite untried in Test matches. He's kind of primarily a white ball player, but you know, I feel it is time to kind of blood some of these people, like you were sort of. I know you've been talking about Nicholas Pooran for quite a long time, Matt.
Yeah.
Just
we just won. No?
Yeah,
but listen,
so I think.
Not to cut you, Toy, but what I think Bangladesh may have to do is the same thing we're discussing, Masha. You were talking about Jason Holder going up the order. Mehdi Miraz is batting at 8 now. He may actually have to go up to 7 if Shakib can't play, and sort of bolster their batting because he's obviously capable. He scored a Test 100, so it's an interesting one.
Is that an option?
Yeah, so it is one possible option. So what you could see is or the way you could see it is Mehdi Hassan is the replacement for Shakib. So you shunt him up the order, although I wouldn't bat him higher than 7 at the moment. And then that gives you space for an extra bowler. So you'd be playing sort of 5 bowlers. It'd give you space. Hang on, I'm running out of. I think I've increased the number of bowlers, so potentially you could end up with 6 bowlers, which might be a bit too many. But you could certainly have maybe another all rounder. So you've got Mehdi Hassan at 7. You could have Saifuddin at 8, and then have 4 frontline bowlers after that. Might give you a bit more balance. So yeah, there's certainly scope for doing that. And again, the way that I sort of see things progressing in the long term, Shakib, wonderful player, as we've discussed before, one of the world's top all-rounders, but he's not going to be around forever. So I feel that, Bangladesh needs to be grooming his successor. And yeah, again, I've written about this. And actually, I've received a lot of criticism from Bangladeshi fans around this. A lot of them don't actually rate Mehdi Hassan very, very highly at all, because I'm kind of thinking that he could be groomed into that Shakib role, that kind of frontline spinner and, very, very handy batsman. But I'm not sure. He's at the moment, he's still young. He's 23. Shakib's 34. Different ends of their careers. So he's got a lot of learning to do, certainly with the bat. But time will tell.
Indeed. If you look at this comment, Nikhil and Santolki, Alzari is an option. So let's say we didn't go pace. Sorry, let's say we didn't add another spinner. The reason why Alzari is an option is he's quicker than Roach, and also Alzari's better in Asian conditions than Roach. Yeah. Admittedly, white ball, I'm thinking, but there is that option as well. I don't know. My gut says to not play Roach in the second test. You have to have Shannon because Shannon is out and out pace, and even if the track is dead and doesn't help pace, an out and out paceman can still bowl a hostile spell with bouncers, even on a dead track. So Shannon kind of has to stay. But it'll be interesting to see what they decide. And then there's a general point here that I want to bring up. Home teams are struggling to defend their home patches all of a sudden. So I presume, and that's from our friends at Edges and Sledges. So obviously Australia lost to India, Bangladesh have lost to us. India right now, England are making them look a bit silly in that first test. Any thoughts on that? Any real thoughts on that right now? Anyone want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I think rather than it being a case of home teams struggling, I think it's a case of the composition of teams. Because if you look at the India side that won away and the West Indies side that won today, it were guys who weren't expecting to have test chances. So, for instance, Washington Sundar for India, who hadn't played in 3 years a first-class game. So these guys are basically making the most of their opportunity and essentially excelling what people expect from them. So I think it's just the nature of the teams at the moment, India and West Indies, having players who wouldn't normally get a look in the test side, being given that opportunity and making the most of it.
And also, I just want to add in, I think it's just good cricket. I think these teams have played good cricket. For example, India played very good cricket in that test series to beat Australia, regardless of the names that Santoki just said. And even the West Indies there, that is just great cricket, regardless of conditions. Yes, they're supposed to favor the home team. But when you have players like Joe Root, for example, who is just a very phenomenal player, these sort of things cancel them out. And Marshall, when you're done, when we're done on this general point, you can bring up Ayana's thing, because Ayana makes a decent. That's another alternative too. What if John Campbell is dropped and the batting goes up one, and then Ray Marifa's put at the bottom to bolster at the bottom? I'm not sure. That could be another option as well.
Just to go back to the away teams, I think maybe one factor could be the lack of home crowds that we've all seen over the last 12 months being a bit of a factor. Certainly, I'd say in India, if sort of England were playing India with a full house in Chennai, I think the atmosphere would be very different there.
I think they started to sell tickets, Sahid. I actually saw that. I think they're starting to sell tickets in India now for the next couple of days.
What, of this test match?
Yeah, or maybe it might be for the next, but I just saw that they're starting to sell tickets. I'm not sure for which.
I think something about the second test possibly having like 50% crowds in, but even then, I find that quite difficult to square. But yeah, I think maybe that has been having a bit of an impact. In Bangladesh again, you get good crowds. Although what I would say is, because I've watched quite a few games out there. I was there for the whole England tour back in 2016. I was there for part of the West Indies tour in 2018. Obviously, the crowds that you get in white ball for white ball matches are obviously pretty much full houses. Test matches, what tends to happen is, certainly at the start of the day, you don't get many people in. The crowd generally builds throughout the day, and then what you see is if Bangladesh are doing well, i.e. they're about to win in maybe 1 or 2 sessions, word gets out and the whole place gets packed out. Otherwise, if they're likely to lose, within the day's play, there won't be very many people there at all. So, yeah, it's interesting. People sometimes might kind of overplay the significance of crowds, but yeah, makes a bit of a difference.
Yeah, indeed. And it will be interesting to see what difference it makes. Certainly in the India-England test, there will be crowds for that second test, most definitely. So we have a second test. So Santoki. So what we say? We're winning the second test then? Are we now turned into predicting that West Indies can win the second test? What we say, guys? What we say the test series win?
I'll say a test series win. I'm not sure if it's 2-0 or 1-0, but I'm going to say a win.
I'm going with defeat in the second test.
I'm gonna have to echo the perceived pessimism.
Y'all are pessimists, man. Honestly, on this day, no, man. Y'all can't be serious. Honestly,
I'm just bringing us back to reality. That's what I'm doing. I'm bringing us back to reality. Listen, at the end of the day, yes, on this day, and what a magnificent day it is, and what a magnificent achievement. But we also have to accept it took an unprecedented innings to do it. Lightning
said that if Kyle Mayers didn't score 210 and he scored 100, that Jermaine Blackwood wouldn't have scored 100, or Joshua Da Silva wouldn't have scored 100.
True, but can Lightning strike twice? I don't know what. Like I said, Tawhid's given it a go at telling us how Bangladesh might approach it. I don't see. Okay, let me start again. We were still facing problems versus the Bangladesh spinners in the first innings, and up until Bonner and Mayers batted today in the second innings. I don't see that going away. And if Tawhid is correct and the pitch it will spin more. If I was Bangladesh, what I'd be doing for the second test, I'd be instructing the groundsman, make it fall apart by day 2. That's what I'd be instructing the groundsman to do, because I'm not really looking to be the first side to lose to the West Indies at home, when West Indies never beat anybody away from home. So I would be instructing the groundsman, I don't even want this test match to last 3 days.
Do you think that Bangladesh are angry at the Chattogram ground staff?
That's a good question, actually, because Tawhid, I am so surprised it lasted 5 days, the test. And if anything, it got truer as we went along.
Yeah,
are you surprised?
I mean, traditionally, it has been a better place. It has been a better batting track than Dhaka. I mean, it's comparative, but it has been a bit of a better batting track than Dhaka. But, I just thought it was a very placid, kind of docile pitch. It had a little bit in it for the spinners. It was a sort of pitch, I thought, where it was difficult to kind of come in and get set. In that Bangladesh first innings, you saw lots of players get starts and then kind of getting out. I think it was difficult to really get set on it, but once you did get set on it, you could kind of score big as we saw today. But the Dhaka pitch, yeah, what you were saying, Mashal, I don't think you need to give those instructions, to be honest. That's kind of unfortunately. That's kind of how the pitch generally plays. Certainly by day 3, I would expect it to be deteriorating quite significantly.
Win the toss on first.
I'm gonna be optimistic and say at this point, I don't think we'll lose the series.
Yeah, do you know what? Actually, yeah, I'm joining you. I'm joining you as well. Actually, yeah, I'm joining.
Honestly,
optimism.
I mean,
but seriously,
the other factor I would say is there's only 4 days gap between this test and the next. So that's not a lot of time to pick yourselves up if you're a team that have just lost a game that really everyone thought you would win. So yeah, there is that factor about Bangladesh having to kind of pick themselves up, move on from this very quickly, because if they don't, and like you say, for example, if West Indies win the toss, bat first, rack up, 200-300 runs on that first day, then really Bangladesh are up against it.
Is it?
How Congress has changed the pessimist, boy. Life is so amazing.
Do you know what? One thing's for certain, and this is a world cricket thing I'm talking about. Never mind West Indies, Bangladesh. Nobody cared about this series. Nobody.
Yeah,
everyone's writing things now, pretending like they cared about this series. And Tawhid, you saw me tweet it for 4.5 days. I swear to God, the only people I saw writing about this series was is it Mohammed Islam for ESPN and Tawhid. That's it. and us tweeting from the cricket podcast handle. Hardly anyone.
The worst is I'm one that, sorry to cut you, man. I'm one that when the series is going on, so I like to tap on the hashtag and look through on Twitter. And when I look in latest, the tweets were like, me, Mashal. I was like 10 minutes apart. I was like, what's going on here? And even when Cameras was going on in that chase, Crit Info only tweeted about it when we needed 80 runs to win. So I was like kind of shocked that nobody was recognizing that. Like nobody, but yeah.
But what I think is because of what's happened, you will see a tiny bit more interest now for the second test, and you won't like if you go on Cricinfo, you might not have to scroll 7 pages till you find the Bangladesh versus West Indies series.
In the click series, so
There might actually be some actual headlines and pages around this, and that's where Tawhid's point is correct. And because the turnaround's so short, the headlines maintain for the second test. So it'll be nice to see us get some focus. And then a final thing I just want to touch on, and I don't know if anybody on here is has Bangladesh origin or is Bengali in any shape or form. I don't know. If you are, let us know. But Tawhid, a talking point, Guerrilla Cricket asked me to come on at the end of play because obviously they were commentating on India versus England, but everyone's eyes turned towards the Bangladesh match in the last however hour of play. And I just wanted your views on it. And Santokian, if you want to jump in at a point. So the West Indies have just struck a deal with BT Sport. The reason why we've got that deal is because there is a huge West Indian diaspora in the UK. And it makes sense. In the same way how West Indies have struck a deal with ESPN in North America, it makes sense that you have a UK deal as well to take advantage of the diaspora market here. How come Bangladesh don't have that?
It's a brilliant question. I mean, yeah, I saw exactly that on Twitter earlier, and yeah, there is a huge thirst and demand for Bangladesh cricket in the UK by the Bangladesh diaspora, as you say, and yeah, in terms of TV rights and TV deals, again, I wrote about this yesterday, by the way. I mean, myself, you, Mash, we know how painful it's been to actually watch the whole of this test match without kind of scouring the internet, trying to look for feeds, trying to look for what, in whatever way we can watch. It's been really, really painful, especially when you're, feeling like a zombie at 3:30 in. So yeah, it's been really painful. And I think one of the reasons is, I wrote about it yesterday, is that it's quite enlightening that there's been some real kind of progressive TV deals being signed by different boards lately. As you say, the West Indies have signed one, Pakistan have signed one, where all of their home fixtures are being shown on Sky now. And then, I think New Zealand are tied up with BT Sport, and Australia are there, obviously, and India as well. So, yeah, a lot of world cricket is visible apart from Bangladesh cricket. It is a source of huge frustration to me and a lot of the Bangladesh community in the UK. The only thing that I can put it down to, and again, if you read my stuff, a lot of it is very critical about the way the board operates, this sort of short-termism, not being progressive in their outlook in trying to grow the game, in trying to kind of reach out to people outside of Bangladesh. But that just seems to be the way it is, unfortunately. At the moment, I actually think that they're negotiating TV rights on a series-by-series basis, which is why, actually, at the start of every series, it's so difficult to work out who's actually broadcasting the thing. So, yeah, it's to do with the board, I would say. It's to do, as ever, to do with issues around finance and money, which probably I don't fully understand. But yeah, the hope is that, going forward, that as you rightly say, the reason why I set up my site, Site Screen Journal, Site Screen Cricket Journal, is basically to try and cater for this kind of demand for knowing about Bangladesh cricket in the UK. It's sort of similar that, I've kind of taken inspiration a little bit from you guys in terms of what you're doing, and yeah, it's hugely frustrating, and I just hope it changes.
As Mash always says, I think there's, what is it, Mash, now? What are we at? Maybe 23, 24 West Indian diaspora fans in the UK. And we've managed to secure a BT deal. I think partly as well, Tawhid, as you've alluded to, it could be relations with the board and their kind of negotiation in terms of business. I also think the time difference probably has a part to play, because BT's West Indies deal is only for home series, and those games suit the UK market because those test matches will kick off at like 4 p.m, 5 p.m. people coming back from work will tune in. So it could also be that factor as well playing a part.
No, but also I just wanted to say, Santoki, what you just said there. I think like everyone's saying this BD Sport deal is so great for the UK and stuff, but I think the main reason why that's happened and why the attention on West Indies cricket has grown in the UK. Now, this is just me giving my opinion from an outsider. I think it's because of Caribbean Cricket Podcast. So you guys, you deserve a lot of credit because the Twitter base that you've built, yes, it might be only 40 that you guys know about, but to have 2,500 followers, everyone sharing your stuff, as etc. I think it's a major reason why the interest in West Indies cricket has grown in the UK significantly.
I would love that to be the case. Do you know what, Nikhil? I don't know, man. What I will say though, and this is why I'm glad to see Tawhid pretty much doing setting up the same thing re Bangladesh. There are cricket mad diaspora fans in the UK for every single team, and it shouldn't be a case whereby you're scrambling for news. You're scrolling ESPN and you're like, but maybe there'll be some news about the West Indies on there today, and you don't even know if anything's going to come up on there. And if there are people like Tawhid from the Bangladesh perspective, or myself and Santoki from West Indian perspective, and that, obviously, Nikhil, that's how we partnered up with you. It was about reaching out to the region, being able to establish links with people in the region, say, listen, in the UK, we want to know what's going on. It was just about creating a medium by which to disseminate that news. But I will not say, Nikhil, that we have any kind of.
No, it's a very small influence. You have some. You deserve a piece of the deal.
But if anyone from BT Sport is listening to this feed, obviously me and Michelle are open to coming in and dropping by, doing some commentary, working in the studio. Yeah, so just hit us up if you are listening from BT Sport.
This thing here, last couple of things, then we'll probably wrap this. But I did see this, but I think so Edges and Sledges saying that Santoki, we spoke about this. So West Indies went after what's his name? Rob Belinda. Is it Rob Belinda? They tried to make him delete all of the West Indian footage on there, but I think they've left him alone now.
No, Dominic Warren said that he selectively he tweeted that they've worked out agreement where there's some videos that he can leave and others that he can delete, but the amount of backlash, that just shows how much people on Twitter, how big the cricket following is on Twitter, the amount of backlash that the cricket world got from just that small thing. That's amazing.
But it just goes to show Rob Belinda's not trying to make loads of money out of anything here. He just wants cricket fans to see cricket. And that's why so many of us flock to the videos that he's got, because they're just a love for watching cricket. So I think cricket boards and we spoke out about it and just said, nah, this isn't a good look, man. Leave the man alone. Like, some of the whole point of West Indies cricket and why everyone loves it is because of the old footage of what they did in the 80s, 70s, etc., 60s. So you can't go after the guy. How else are we going to watch the footage?
That's like in basketball. I'm not sure if you guys know, but like a lot of the US social medias, the NBA have sold their thing. So you would see on Instagram, I see clips from every single game, like a shot here, a dunk here, a block here. So I'm always able to keep in tap, because on Instagram every night you'll see things from every single basketball game, because they're the social media platforms, and that's smart by the NBA because they're knowing that that's a way of furthering their game. It's something that I would love for cricket to go to. I think we only see it with Australia when they play cricket on their cricket.com.au Twitter page, because otherwise you would never see, for example, the moment Joe Root got 200. If you're not watching the game live on Twitter, how would you see it? And unless days after or hours after, you would never see it right then and there. So it's something that I think we can grow our game, a way we can grow it.
Yeah, most definitely. So, gents, I mean, I didn't know how this one would go because we just decided to freestyle it. Let's bring this one to a close. Everyone who's joined us, loads of you joined us today. We'll obviously it's being recorded. We'll put it out tomorrow for those who didn't get a chance to see it. But let's finish it how we started. Today we saw one of the most iconic Test match innings. Even if you disagree, it has to be because it was record breaking. No one else has ever done it before from a Test debutant. And the other thing we haven't mentioned is Carl Mayers did this on the day that Ezra Mosley passed away. And I'm not saying anything like, oh, he did it for Ezra Mosley, but it certainly meant more given that it happened on this day as well. There were players out there in Bangladesh who know Ezra Mosley exceptionally closely. So it would have been a very difficult thing to be miles away from Barbados, hearing the news, having to focus in on the test match, and then you have a Barbadian himself then hit 210 on test debut. It doesn't really, of course it gets bigger than that, but in the context of what happened in Barbados, you couldn't have a more fitting response to the news that broke early in the morning. So rest in peace, rest in power to Ezra Mosley, and what a way to almost remember his memory with Carl Mayer's not stage. You're Barbadian, Nikhil. Do you want to say anything on that just to end in terms of Ezra Mosley?
Well, I think you spot on in terms of the legacy that Ezra Mosley's left. I can tell you, for example, one player, Jason Holder. Ezra Mosley, Jason Holder will tell you directly from himself that one of the main reasons he's as the person he is, forget just the cricketer, is because of Ezra Mosley. Because Jason Holder went to St. Michael's School. That's where Ezra Mosley coached him. And so many players has he touched. So I think that news really hit everyone hard at the Super 50, in Bangladesh, everyone, even in the whole world. You could see the effect on Twitter, etc. So I just want to say that I think his legacy definitely was living on yesterday within Kyle Mayers and within that entire West Indies team. And I think everything, it should not only be this test match. Everything we do, we should remember Ezra Mosley, because he's honestly a legend of this game and someone that gave a lot, both as a player and as a coach. So rest in peace to a legend. 100%,
and perfect way to end it. Tawhid, I know you'll join us for the second test. As usual, Santoki and I haven't even planned what we're doing. But we will come up with some kind of plan for the second test, whether we preview it or whether we do something in the middle of it.
Time, Santoki. Wake up.
Yeah. Do you know what? Do you know what, actually? Santoki has slept through 87% of this entire test series. He's out here to come and take the winnings and the spoils at the end of the test match.
I was going to say, I've been sitting here like I've been putting in the hours, man. I just woke up for the winning ones there.
So we'll see how the second test goes. One thing's for certain: these two teams will have they're evenly matched. They're based on the first test. They're an evenly matched side. It'll be super competitive, and it'll be good, hopefully, to have the cricket world's eyes actually focusing on a series between Bangladesh and the West Indies, and not treat us like two insignificant minnows. So we look forward to that. Tawhid will link up most definitely for some next rum shots. Nikhil, even if we lose, Nikhil, you have to jump back on,
Yeah, of course. I'm ready.
So, ladies and gents, everyone who's joined us for this rum shot, it's been a fantastic one. It's been good to have you on. Great engagement. And we'll see you soon. If you want to know how to, Nikhil, you know how to find him. We mention him on our handles all the time. With regards to Tawhid, we retweet his day-by-day reviews of the test matches, Sight Screen Cricket Journal. Yeah, Sight Screen Cricket Journal. So you can find Tawhid on Twitter as well. He writes excellent summaries of each day's review. So even if you've missed a day because you haven't got a stream, you haven't seen the highlights, whatever, go to Tawhid and he's basically taking care of you in terms of summing up what's actually happened. And it's not just from a Bangladesh perspective. He covers it essentially from both angles in terms of what's happened. So go check him out as well. But we look forward to seeing you all for the second test. Cheers, everyone. Thank you and good night.